Historians now define the golden age of piracy as spanning just under a century, from the 1650s to the 1730s. However, the notorious and impactful exploits of pirates during this era remained significant regardless of its duration. For years, lawless pirates raided merchant vessels along the eastern seaboard of America, often evading pursuit by naval ships while taking refuge on Bahamian islands. Legends of hidden treasures spread rapidly, fueling the imaginations of treasure hunters who still dream of discovering a fortune. Even in modern times, iconic characters like Captain Jack Sparrow perpetuate the allure of the Golden Age, preserving its culture for future generations. Despite the romanticized portrayal, the harsh realities of pirate life were far from glamorous. So, what was life truly like aboard those ships, and how did pirates of the 17th century operate? Here are 5 facts revealing the less romantic aspects of their existence that are bound to astonish and intrigue. Number 5. They were often coerced to work on the ships during the golden age of piracy. There was a constant demand for men seeking profitable employment, matched by the need of unscrupulous captains for additional crew members. To address this demand, many individuals were unlawfully coerced into service through the practice of shanghaiing. When port cities faced shortages of available labor, pirate captains instructed their crews to forcibly recruit unsuspecting individuals. Following these orders, pirates would often drug or assault intoxicated men in taverns, rendering them unconscious. Upon awakening, these victims would find themselves aboard the pirate ship, sometimes far out at sea, having been forcefully enlisted without their consent. As these unfortunate men grappled with pounding headaches, they gradually realized their predicament. Stranded at sea with no means of recourse, they reluctantly acquiesced to the demands of the captains, who counted on their forced labor. While this coercive method hardly fostered loyalty, pirate captains were indifferent as long as they secured the manpower they required. What's truly astonishing is that shanghaiing wasn't confined to pirate ships alone. Legal merchant vessels and trade ships worldwide employed similar tactics for centuries in port cities. Whaling and fishing vessels in the 19th century were particularly notorious for the practice known as blackbirding, especially in the South Pacific and what is now Papua New Guinea. Even naval vessels resorted to such methods at times. Thankfully, this inhumane practice was eventually outlawed globally in the early 20th century. Number 4. But once on board they practiced democracy. Ancient Greek statesmen would likely condemn piracy as a profession due to its inherent cruelty and violence, lacking in intellectual discourse. However, the actions of swashbuckling sailors inadvertently contributed to the advancement of Athenian democracy in their own pragmatic manner. On pirate ships, every crew member had a vote concerning the ship's operations and navigation, and loot was fairly distributed among all sailors after raids. Regardless of their position on board, each individual had a voice in the ship's affairs, a rarity during that era. Modern historians posit that this egalitarian structure stemmed from the backgrounds of many pirates, who often hailed from marginalized groups such as escaped slaves or the impoverished. Having experienced unfair treatment in their previous societies, pirates sought to level the playing field aboard their ships. While captains still held the most authority and occasionally resorted to brutal tactics, crew members had the power to vote and, with a simple majority, could depose a captain following a significant disagreement. Consequently, captains were compelled to compromise to maintain order and democracy on board. For sailors weary of oppression on land, piracy offered a means to assert autonomy and improve their circumstances in a relatively equitable manner. Number 3. They were also early adopters of same-sex marriage. Credit the progressive-minded pirates for pioneering same-sex civil unions. Indeed, in the confined quarters of a ship with no women present, it's only natural that close bonds would form among the men. This phenomenon of mutual personal attraction among pirates even has a term coined by historians, matelotage. However, for many swashbucklers, matelotage wasn't necessarily driven by romantic or sexual motives. It often had practical financial implications. Pirate partners would exchange gold rings and agree to share possessions equally, providing a form of mutual security during tough times. In the event of one partner's death, the surviving member would inherit all property, often ensuring a dignified burial for their fallen comrade. While romantic aspects existed in some cases, one French governor's strong disapproval led to drastic measures in the 17th century. Shocked by the prevalence of matelotage, he resorted to sending 2,000 prostitutes to the pirate haven of Tortuga, suggesting that he viewed prostitution as a lesser evil than same-sex marriage. Number 2. Pirate ships had their own departments of human resources. It's rather astounding to consider. but pirates had something akin to a severance package, and not through gruesome means. During the 1700s, many pirate crews agreed to provide substantial sums of gold to members who suffered severe injuries on duty. If an injured pirate could no longer continue their piratical pursuits, their shipmates would collectively contribute a lump sum to facilitate their retirement. While this informal form of workers' compensation wasn't universal, it occurred frequently enough to be noteworthy. Historical accounts document specific instances where injured pirates received substantial amounts of gold. For example, in Alexandre Skemelin's 1678 memoir, a pirate who lost an arm was granted 600 pieces of gold, equivalent to over 100,000 US dollars in today's currency. This compensation served a vital purpose in the perilous world of piracy, where danger and violence were constant threats. Without adequate compensation, the risk-reward ratio would have been skewed for many sailors. However, the promise of financial security motivated buccaneers to take the necessary risks to ensure piracy remained profitable. In exchange for a potential lifetime of financial stability, pirates willingly faced incredible dangers at the behest of their captains. Although not comparable to modern safety nets, this pirate version of workers' compensation, akin to Social Security, proved remarkably effective throughout the golden age of piracy. Number 1. The meaning of all those special flags everybody knows about the Jolly Roger. The famous black flag adorned with a white skull and crossbones is notorious. It is quintessential vintage pirate fare, and it lives on today. Back during the Golden Age, pirate ships really did fly that flag. It was a near-universal symbol to indicate their presence. Merchant ships would see it, and no violent thieves were en route to peruse and plunder. But it was far from the only cloth sign that ran up the pirate pole. The most infamous pirate flag, other than the Jolly Roger, was a bloody red creation billowing brightly in the air. When it rose, the message was clear. The pirates were out for blood. Flying red meant they weren't looking for their victims to merely surrender. Merchant sailors who saw the red wave knew a violent death was imminent. Other flags went further with more subtle meanings. Most were black, and many had skulls of some form on them. But not all looked like that. Some flags were colorful. Others mimicked naval designs to engage in further deception. As the early 18th century wore on, pirates got more intricate with their flag designs. Famous buccaneers of the era opted for a custom look. Stede Bonnet, Edward Lowe, Philip Line, and many more all created their own unique flag designs.